Hi, I'm Laura Cheney with Vocational Rehabilitation Services, and this video is going to cover how to use Workforce One for IPS custom program reporting. Here's a little background information about this initiative. Why are we doing this? There was a need to establish a comprehensive data collection system in order for IPS state program grantees to report information about the participants they are serving. The IPS state grant program needs to collect and report data to tell the story of IPS. Policymakers rely on data about who is served by the IPS program and the outcomes those participants achieve to inform decisions about programs and funding. The IPS state grant program, IPS grantees, and other stakeholders cannot fully advocate for IPS without this data. How are we collecting the data? The new solution will use Workforce One. Some of you may have heard of Workforce One or possibly used it in the past. For those of you that have used Workforce One, IPS grantees will no longer be entering information directly in the case record of a VRS participant. Workforce One has many different sections used by different programs. As of July 1st, 2021, a custom program was created within Workforce One for IPS staff to enter data about the participants they are serving. Workforce One is a web-based application, and there is no cost to the provider to use it. Providers will be asked to report basic information. This will include enrollment or basic demographic information, employment information, things like the name of the employer, the employment start date, job title, wages, and hours, and the program exit date and reason. Employment supervisors for IPS state grants and others in the Minnesota IPS learning community will be required to enter the above data elements on each participant they are serving as of July 1st, 2021. Employment supervisors are strongly encouraged to begin using the new system and entering data after this initial training is complete. We will report this information quarterly. Data needs to be entered into Workforce One and up to date within 30 days of the end of each quarter. I'm going to navigate to the training version of Workforce One. It mimics the live version, but allows me to enter in fake information to show you what this process will look like. I'm going to walk through the following items: how to conduct a person search, how to add a new person, adding a custom program application, completing the enrollment, updating activities, and exiting a record. Okay, so I've navigated to the testing site, and remember the live version will look exactly the same. So the first thing that you'll need to do is log into the system. If you've completed an access form, you should have received an email with your username and possibly a temporary password. The first time you log in, the system will prompt you to change your password. I also want to point out that if anytime you forget your username or password, there is a link here, forgot username, password. Click that link and it will walk you through the process to get that information. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. And for today, I'm pretending to be Jane Smith. And when you first log in, this is the screen that you're going to see. We call this the dashboard. And this will display the participants that are assigned to your caseload. So you'll notice that in this example, there are 8 participants, and it'll show their names, their unique record ID number, the program that they're being served from, their case status, whether or not they're enrolled, the county that they live in, and then the last open activity. From the dashboard, you can get into a participant's record, and you do that by simply clicking on their name. So if I click on her name, it brings me right into her record, and the first page displays just basic contact information. Now, if I want to get back to the dashboard, The easiest way is to click the Workforce One logo, or I could click Home. So I'm going to click the logo, back to my dashboard. The other piece that we need to talk about is this ribbon across the top. So you'll notice as I'm kind of scrolling across, it's expanding. The most common thing that you're going to be using this ribbon for is the person search. So if, for example, you needed to add a new participant into Workforce One, you're always first going to search to see if they exist. So perhaps they don't show on your dashboard because you haven't worked with them, but perhaps they might be in the system already. So to do the person search, you'll hover over search, click on person, and it brings you to this page. The most common way you're going to search is by the person's first and last name. So for example, I'm going to search for Mary Tanner. When I do that, I get no results. So in that example, I would be clicking this button, add a new person, because I want to create a record for her. Now, I want to show what happens when the person exists. So you'll notice to get that search panel back, I clicked on this blue ribbon and it expanded the panel. So this time I'm going to search for Michelle Tanner. When I do that, I do get a result. So the system will display that record ID and it'll show the birth date and the city. If I needed more information to confirm that this is the same Michelle Tanner that I'm working with, again, I would click on the name and it's going to show me more information. It's important to know that in Workforce One, each participant should have one record ID number. So that's why it's really important to first search to see if the person exists in the system. So we are going to get Mary Tanner added to the system. So I'm going to click add new person. You're going to notice it brings me to this page. You're going to notice that there are a series of fields that have a red asterisk. That means those fields are required in order to save the page. So I'm going to go ahead and enter these fields. And then I'm going to click save. Now, Workforce One is running a search to look to make sure we don't have duplicate records. So it recognizes that these participants have the same last name. However, I didn't provide a birth date, so it can't check on that. And the addresses are not the same. So we do want to create a new record for Mary Tanner. So I'm going to click add person record. And now it indicates that that has been saved and it gave me this unique record ID number. So now my record person has been created in Workforce One. So for purposes of the IPS grant, the next step is going to be to enter an application. So you're going to notice on the left-hand side, there's a series of links. And this is how we navigate through the record. So I'm going to click on this program new app. When I do that, I get a button, add new custom program application. I'm going to click here. And from here, again, I have a series of fields that are required with the red asterisk. So I'm going to complete those. For the program, most of our agencies have one IPS project that they're serving. We do have a couple of agencies that have multiple projects. So if that's the case for your agency, within the program, that's where you're going to see the other projects. If there's only one, you'll select the one that displays. The application date. So for purposes of reporting, this custom program went live in Workforce One on July 1st, 2021. So we're asking that you enter in all of the participants that you were serving as of July 1st, 2021. So the application date would be July 1st, 2021. Now, as you start working with new participants, the application date would be the actual date. So for example, if I started working with someone on August 15th is what I would use as the application date. And then the last piece, the primary staff, this is where you're going to pull your name from the drop-down menu. And then you're going to click continue to enrollment. And you're going to notice the system tries to give you prompts to let you know that the information you're entering is being saved. So again, at the top, I have the little green check mark letting me know my application was saved. Now I'm at the enrollment page. Again, this has a series of required fields that I need to populate. And this is a lot of that basic demographic information. So the enrollment date, again, we're going to use 7/1/2021 for all the participants that we're serving as of that date. Going forward, if you start working with a new participant, the enrollment date will be the actual date. So I'm going to pause the recording. I'm going to complete these required fields and I'll be right back. Okay, I have completed those fields. I do want to point out that some of the fields do not have a red asterisk, so it does not indicate that they're required. But if you had the information, I would certainly encourage you to enter that into the system. So if, for example, the phone number, it's not a required field, but if I have the person's phone number, I most likely would want to get that entered so I had that contact information. You'll notice for the phone type, we have lots of different options, so staff can differentiate between those. And then because some of our programs serve participants that are deaf or hard of hearing, we do have the ability to indicate if the number being entered is for a TTY or a video phone. So I've completed those required fields. I do want to talk about this activity type. So you're going to notice that you have three options: staff assisted job placement, employed full-time, or employed part-time. So this is going to be when the person first started working with you, where were they at? Were they unemployed? Then you would select staff assisted job placement. Or did they come in with employment, either employed full-time or part-time? So you would answer that question based on where the participant was. For this example, I'm going to say they were unemployed. So now I've completed all the required fields. So I would click enroll. So I'm going to do that. And I got a little red exclamation point. Anytime you see a red exclamation point, that means that something is missing. And if I scroll to the bottom of the page, it'll tell me that the birthday is required. So Workforce One always knows what fields are required, and it'll let you know if you've missed one. So here I'm going to go ahead and populate that. Now when I click enroll, I got the little green check mark letting me my enrollment has been saved. Okay. Okay, I'm back at the enrollment page for a different participant. I just want to give a couple of reminders. You'll notice that on this page, there are a series of required fields. So if there was a record you're working on and maybe you didn't have all of the information, you're not going to be able to enroll the person until you have all the fields completed. But you are able to save what you have entered into the system. So you would click this save without enrolling button, and it would keep everything that you've done. Then once you had the information, you would come back to this eligibility accepted on the left navigation and click this button to complete enrollment. And it's going to bring you back to the page. You're going to go ahead and complete the required fields. Now for this example, I want to show what we're going to do if when the person comes and starts working with us, they are employed. So for this example, I'm going to say that this participant is employed part-time. So I'm going to enroll. So their enrollment is saved. On the left navigation, I'm going to click on activity. And here is where it's going to indicate they're enrolled and their current activity is employed part-time. Now we would want to get that employment information entered into the system. So to do that, on my right navigation, I'm going to click edit under the action column. And now you're going to see that there's this employment info panel. And here is where I'm going to populate the information about where that person is currently working. So, I could enter in the name of the employer, and then I have to complete these required fields. And then at the bottom of the page, I would click save. So this is what we're going to want you to do when you're entering an enrollment for someone who is working. You're going to go edit the activity to enter in the employment information. Okay. So I'm going to go back to Mary Tanner. So I'm going to click on her name from my dashboard. And again, using my left navigation, I'm going to click on activity. So Mary is someone, when she started working with us, she was unemployed. So she's in that job search. And now she has found a job. So in that example, I would want to add a new activity, update her activity to indicate that she became employed. So to do that, I would add a custom program activity. Now, if the participant becomes employed and they're no longer job searching, then we would first want to close the staff assisted placement activity. If they became employed, but they are still looking for possibly a better job or a different job, then we would leave this activity open. So in this example, I'm going to leave it open, but I'm going to add the employment. So click add CP activity. And for my activity type, I have those same options as when we're enrolling. So I'm going to say she became employed full-time. And I have to indicate the date that she started working. And then populate these fields. So I'm going to pause the recording for a second and complete these. Okay, I'm back. I do want to point out that there's a couple of fields here where it's requiring a code, so a numeric value. You're going to notice that there's this box, search validate. So when you click on that, it allows you to put in text. And based on the text that you enter, it'll come up with the codes. So for that example, I said she's a cashier at Cub Foods, and now it populated that ONET code for me. So we'll go ahead and just keep populating these fields. And then you're going to see at the bottom of the page, I can click save. So now on my activity summary, it indicates that there are 2 open activities. Now, if Mary was employed full-time and she was no longer looking for a different job, then I would want to close this staff assisted placement activity. So to do that, in the action column, I click edit. And at the bottom of the page, there's this panel to close the activity. So you would enter in the date that the activity stopped. I'm going to use the same date that she became employed. And then it wants to know the completion results, successful or not successful. For this example, I'm going to say successful because she became employed. And then I'm going to click save. And now you'll notice that she has a start and end date populated for that staff assisted placement. Now, if Mary was working and became unemployed, something happened, and she's no longer working at Cub Foods and she needs our assistance again with the job search, then I would add a new activity and I can put her back to the staff assisted job placement, and I can indicate the date and click save. Now, in this example, this employment activity is still open. So because she's no longer employed, again, I would want to click edit in the action column, come down to the bottom of the page, close the activity. And again, you'll notice I got the little red exclamation point stating these two fields are required. So I need to populate the end date and the reason when I'm closing the activity. And we'll just say that and then save. And now that employment activity is closed. So that is the process for adding or updating the activity statuses. And you'll want to keep that information up to date. So the next thing we want to review on this left navigation is closing the record. So that would be the exit. So when the participant will no longer be part of the IPS project, you would want to get them exited. So to do that, you'll click exit. And it brings you to the exit summary. And you'll click exit program sequence. And from the drop-down menu, you'll have a series of options. So I'm gonna say maybe she moved. Click next. You have to indicate the date that they're exiting. And at the time of exit, we're gonna say she was unemployed. Now it's showing the activities that I have open. So I had this staff assisted placement activity that I had put her back into. So it wants to know what the result of that was. And I'm going to say not successful because when I'm exiting her, she's unemployed. If I was exiting her and she was employed, then you would update those accordingly. So then the final step would be to save the exit. So again, if you started entering information on the page and you weren't ready to fully exit the person from the program, you could save the exit as pending. So if I do that, it's pending. She's still active in the system. So if, for example, something happened and she wasn't ready to exit, I could delete that pending exit, update her activity statuses based on what's going on. For this example, I'm just going to go ahead and exit. You'll notice it saved all the other information I had entered. Save final exit. So now the exit has been saved. If I click on this at a glance, it'll show those dates. The date I entered the application, the date I entered them as enrolled, and the date of the exit.
Recording in progress.
Okay, there's just a couple more things that I want to review. So I'm going to get back into this record and I'm going to click on the activity, and this participant indicates is employed part-time. I do want to let you know that if the participant you're working with has multiple jobs, you are able to add multiple employment statuses. So it would let me add another activity indicating that they were employed part-time. And it's saying that this type is already open with the start date of July 1st. Do I want to open another one? I'm going to say yes. And maybe I'm going to say they started the second job on July 19th. And I'm going to go ahead and complete this, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, so I was able to enter that information. So you're going to notice that there are 2 open statuses indicating that the person is employed part-time. So if I want more information, I can click on the link and it's going to pop up a page. A little slow this morning. 1 second here. Okay, so here it is. So when I clicked on that link, it brings up this information that will show the name of the employer and that information that I populated into the system. So just so you're aware, you can have multiple statuses open at the same time and of the same type. So particularly when they're employed. There's just a couple other things that I want to call out. If you needed to update some basic information about the participant, on the left nav, you'll see the link that says contact. So if, for example, you needed to update their phone number, their email, or their address, you would do it on this contact page. You type over the existing information and then click save at the bottom. And that will update the contact information. And then there's this section called case notes. So on a lot of the pages, you'll see, I'm just going to do this for an example. You'll see towards the bottom that there's a text box that is called case note. This just allows you to enter notes into the system. And when you enter them as a case note, you'll be able to see them in this case note section up here. And they're not required. As you can see, there's no red asterisk in this field, but if you wanted to add more information as a reminder to yourself, you could certainly do that. Otherwise, if you click add case note, brings up the case note section, you can put in a date, you can type in your note and click save at the bottom of the page. Again, I'm going to click on the Workforce One logo, gets me back to my dashboard. The last thing I want to kind of go over is, again, on this ribbon. So there's a ribbon called Recent Work. This is going to show the last 20 records that you accessed. So for some staff, they know, oh, I was just in that record earlier this morning. Instead of doing a person search or clicking on the record from their dashboard, they can click on recent work and click on the name, and it'll bring you into the record. So this is going to conclude the training about Workforce One. If you have any questions, you can contact me, Laura Cheney, and my information will be included as part of the communication that is sent out along with this video. Thank you.